Okay, so what we start with is skull data. So usually we work from 3D scan or CT scan or laser scan data. You can see one here of a male skull. We use anatomical standards for determining facial features. We also use tissue depth pegs that you can see here to represent the average tissue depths at those anatomical points for different genders and ages and ethnic groups. And then we have particular standards that we use for setting the eyeballs in position. So that tells us exactly where the inner corner of the eye sits. And then on the outer corner of the eye we have a little lump called the malar tubercle, which is exactly where the tendons of the outer corner of the eye sit. That's why it's there. And we also have a database of features that we import and then alter to fit each skull that we're working with. So you can build up a sense of the shape, the overall shape of the face. The nasal aperture and the shape of that and measurements of those will tell us about the shape of the nose. The teeth will tell us about the position of the lips and how the lips meet and how wide the mouth is and how thick the lips are. The ears we don't know a great deal about, but we can tell where they sit because of the position of the external auditory meatus. Well, not all of our standards have been tested on many different populations, but those that have, so for example, the standards that we use to predict the nose have been tested on a number of different populations and are as accurate in all of those populations. I think the problematic areas for us are the bit that comes after shape. I mean, I feel pretty confident after the experimental studies that we've done that we're pretty good at predicting face shape. We know in the studies that we've repeated on living people that about 70% of the surface of the reconstruction will have less than 2 millimeters of error in relation to the actual face. The problem for us is everything else. All the things that make a face recognizable, like skin color and wrinkles and moles and freckles and eye color and hairstyle and all of those things that we don't know at all from the skeletal structure, we may get some indication of in relation to DNA, but it doesn't tell us everything, and those are the really important parts of a facial depiction that can change the same face shape to look very different depending on the different textures that are used. Well, so in those situations we tend to work with the archaeologists, with the anthropologists, with the historians to get the maximum amount of information that we know. So we tend to use, for example, hairstyles that are common from that period of time, from that part of the world, from somebody of that status. So that would be suggested by the archaeologists, the historians. We would work from the DNA data to give us the hair colour and eye colour and likely skin colour, but of course there's a lot of variation in that. So we'll go with the most likely based on what we know about those people from that period of time. And when we don't know very much about those people from that period of time, then there could be multiple interpretations that are possible with the same face shape. So for example, we know that if you scan faces and just show them in a grey colour, so they're exactly correct in terms of shape, people who know that person find it difficult to recognise them. Adding textures is what makes the face look real and believable. Sometimes people want to see something that looks like a photograph. They want a photograph of what that person looked like. And maybe it's our responsibility to let people know that that's not possible, that it's an interpretation based on everything we know in terms of the anatomy and the anthropology and the archaeological evidence and maybe the DNA and stable isotopes. Everything combined will give us the most likely appearance of that person from what we know. And that can change with time depending on the knowledge that we have and the additional evidence that we have. So 10, 15 years ago, we very infrequently had DNA evidence for these kind of archaeological cases. Now it's becoming more and more common for us to not only have DNA, but to have stable isotope information that tells us about where they lived. And that will also have an effect on how they presented themselves in terms of the clothes that they wore, the hairstyles that they had, and the adornments that they gave themselves.